Genshin Impact's patch 7.0 will bring a new region, new characters, and new elemental reaction specializations. And with new characters and some of the best rerun characters we've had in a while, a lot of people are having trouble deciding who to wish for. That's why in this video, we'll go over Odette, Arlecchino, Flins, and Ineffa's strengths, weaknesses, and pull value for your account. That way you can be sure you're making the best decision and not wasting your precious Primo Gems. With that being said, there is nothing wrong with just wishing for a character you really like, but you will want to know how those characters work and what they struggle to do, which is exactly what this video is designed to help you with. So even if you know who you want already, this video will help you best be prepared to play your favorite characters at their maximum potential. Make sure to like this video and share it with anyone who may be wondering who to wish for, and let me extend my thanks for doing so, as it does really help out a lot. Now let's talk about Odette, aka Ballerina Knife. Odette is an off-field cryo sword character that specializes in enabling and buffing Stellar Swirl and Stellar Conduct. Just like lunar reactions, stellar reactions are stronger variants of already existing reactions. And also like lunar reactions, stellar reactions won't work with just anyone. You need a special character, like Odette, in order to enable them. Having Odette in your party allows your team to trigger Stellar Conduct or Stellar Swirl, which is a special reaction that triggers when your party combines Cryo and Electro, or Cryo and Anemo, respectively. Beyond enabling these special reactions, Odette's major power comes from her elemental skill, which persists even when she's off-field. Her skill deals cryo damage and stellar damage every 2 seconds, and after casting her elemental skill, she can follow it up with a second elemental skill that makes her do a big stellar damage nuke. And as a reminder, stellar damage from talents or passive abilities ignore defense, which makes Odette pretty strong. What's unique about her kit is that she can buff her own reaction damage while she's the active character, but when she switches out, she gradually loses this buff and then transfers it to the other characters on your team, making them deal more reaction damage instead. And while Odette's elemental skill deals stellar damage, her elemental burst does not. It only deals regular cryo damage, and that makes it generally not worth using, and that's not actually a bad thing since you won't need to build any energy recharge for her. So, how good is Odette? Is she your Stellar Swan Lake savior, or should you skip her and save for someone else? Odette's main appeal is that she's an off-field damage dealer who enables Stellar Conduct and Stellar Swirl while also buffing those reactions. She's not the best in any of those roles in particular, but she is good enough in all of them to be worth your Primo Gems if you really like stellar reaction teams. Her damage isn't as good as popular Stellar Conduct supports like Yaimiko, but Yai also doesn't enable Stellar Conduct or give you the option to enable Stellar Swirl for that matter. And since she works off-field, she gives you a lot more flexibility for team building compared to someone like Snezhnaya, who will want to remain the active character. This aspect of Odette's design also makes her a great support for older characters who got stellar reaction buffs like Wriothesley, Cyno, Yaimiko, and Mizuki. Overall, Odette is a great support with a good amount of versatility, but she's not for everyone. If you don't want to play any stellar reaction teams or have no interest in wishing for other characters to bring out Odette's true potential, then she's not a good character to wish for. But if you like stellar reaction teams, in particular if you really like some older characters like Wriothesley, Cyno, or Mizuki, then Odette is a great character to wish for. As for free-to-play or newer players, Odette is a good choice if you have Mizuki, and she also pairs well with the Cryo Traveler too, so it's easy to make a good team with her without too much investment. Unfortunately, she doesn't have the best free-to-play weapon options, but her signature weapon isn't worth wishing for either, so it's completely fine to make do with a 3-star Harbinger of Dawn sword until you get something better. Recommended teams and teammates for Odette include Stellar Conduct and Stellar Swirl teams with Snezhnaya, Yaimiko, Cyno, Wriothesley, Chi-Chi, Mizuki, Cryo Traveler, and really just any other stellar reaction characters. Now let's talk about Arlecchino, one of the Harbingers and Pyro damage dealer that some affectionately refer to as Father. Her kit seems very complicated at first, but in practice it's actually really easy to play. Just use her elemental skill, wait for the mark her skill applies to get bigger, then use a charged attack. You can also use a charged attack right away if your mark hits multiple enemies. Doing this will give Arlecchino a bond of life, which prevents her from being healed by anything except her elemental burst, and her normal attacks gain a pyro infusion and a big damage bonus. Her elemental burst does a single instance of pyro damage, and it also heals her, with the heal being greater the more bond of life she has, and her elemental burst also resets the long cooldown of her elemental skill. Since Arlecchino's damage is tied to her bond of life and not an ability duration, she has a little bit more leeway with her rotations, and since her damage is also very front-loaded, she works well against waves of enemies, and also when you need to defeat enemies relatively fast. The biggest downside to Arlecchino is that she cannot be healed in combat except by her elemental burst, so it can feel risky to play her without a shield or other defensive support. Arlecchino works very well in a variety of teams like Vaporize, Reverse Melt, Chevreuse Overloaded, Mono Pyro, and more. She's pretty free-to-play friendly, making good use out of the free-to-play Spear, the White Tassels, and even working well with many different 4-star characters. So how good is Arlecchino? Should you burn your primos to pay off her blood debt, or is it better to remain fatherless for this Harbinger? Arlecchino's personal damage is good to great. Her damage is good on its own, but it gets drastically increased by your teams and how invested you are in your supports. This means her damage can fluctuate quite a lot between players, and you might not get as much mileage out of Arlecchino as someone who has built up really good supports for her. Arlecchino's support capability is bad. She is an on-field damage dealer and needs a team built around her being on-field, otherwise she's not contributing anything at all. Arlecchino's team flexibility is good. Arlecchino has a lot of good team options, even if several of them consist of limited 5-stars. Arlecchino Vaporize with Xingqiu or Yelan and an Anemo character, Overloaded with Chevreuse, Hypercarry with Xilonen, Melt with Citlali, and even pseudo-lunar charge teams with Ineffa all work really well. Even though Arlecchino works in a variety of teams, her Bond of Life mechanic can make things a little bit tricky sometimes, since turning off her healing makes characters like Farina much worse for Arlecchino. Arlecchino's free-to-play friendliness is okay. Arlecchino can use the R5 White Tassels, a free-to-play 3-star spear, and it will outperform a lot of 4-star gacha weapons. And she also does well with a variety of 4-star characters. However, Arlecchino does really appreciate having more premium options like a 5-star weapon and some 5-star supports. She can do very well at free-to-play levels, especially with a Chevreuse Overloaded team, but better supports and weapons make her shine so much brighter. Arlecchino's overall value is good. She is a solid damage dealer that has a good amount of versatility. Despite how annoying it feels that her Bond of Life prevents her from healing outside of her elemental burst in combat, Arlecchino is pretty easy to play. She's mostly an indicator of how developed your account is. If you have several good supports that are well built, Arlecchino will feel good. But if you're newer and have fewer characters that are not well built, then she's not really going to feel that strong. Recommended teammates and teams for Arlecchino include shield characters like Lanyan or Citlali, especially in melt teams, attack buffers like Bennett, Vaporize supports like Xingqiu and Yelan, as well as Anemo characters, overloaded characters like Chevreuse and Fischl, and there's plenty of other characters that work well with her like Ineffa and Xilonen. Now let's go over Flins, the flashiest and most gentlemanly Undertaker you'll ever meet. Flins is an electro spear-wielding on-field damage dealer. His kit seems pretty complicated, but it's actually really easy to understand. His normal attacks are not very important and not even worth leveling up, but his elemental skill is. It gives him a special electro infusion, and he also gets a special version of his skill in this state that deals AoE electro damage and allows him to use a special mini version of his elemental burst afterwards. This special mini version of his elemental burst does a little bit less damage than his regular burst, but it costs significantly less energy, and therefore you'll be able to use it multiple times over a rotation. So to play Flins, you'll use his elemental skill to enter a special electro infusion state, and then you can use his skill once again, which will allow you to use his mini burst, then you just do a few attacks, then you can use his special skill once again, followed by another mini burst. Almost all of Flynn's damage is concentrated into these mini elemental bursts, so you'll want to use them frequently. Like Ineffa, Flynn's is designed to be a lunar charged character. Flynn's replaces the electro charge reaction with lunar charge and deals direct lunar charge damage, which ignores defense and is multiplied by 3. So you want to make sure the enemy is consistently affected by Hydro to get the best value out of Flynn's. So, just how good is Flins? Will he shock you into the next life, or is he the one who needs life support? Flynn's personal damage is great, provided you're playing him correctly. His damage can be very high thanks to the mechanics of Lunar Charge and the high damage output of his mini bursts. He's far from the best damage dealer in the game, but he's also much better than a majority of the other on-field damage dealers. Flynn's support capability is bad. To play Flins well, you need to build a team around him that caters to his needs, and he is not designed to support the team in any way, only to deal damage. Flynn's team flexibility is okay. You'll want to run him in an electro-charged, aka lunar charged team. The general party makeup for this team will be Flins, another electro character, a hydro character, and a flex slot that's usually an animo character. Sucrose and Ineffa are great with Flins, and a character like Yelan works very well too. Xingqiu is also a pretty good choice, but Xingqiu's rotations with Flins are a little scuffed because Flins does shorter rotations, and Xingqiu is better in longer rotations. Without Ineffa, Flins is a lot worse, but he can work well with more free-to-play friendly options like Auroran, so even though he only really works with one team archetype, he still does have a few different options for team members. Flynn's free-to-play friendliness is good. He has a good free-to-play weapon in the Nodcry craftable weapon, and he's a lot easier to build than some other damage dealers because you would rather give him an attack goblet than an electro damage goblet, because most of his damage is considered lunar charge damage, which does not scale with electro damage, but is increased by attack. That being said, at a minimum, you want another good source of off-field hydro for him, which can be the free Ino you get if necessary. Flynn's overall value is good. He's a solid character and one that will outperform many other electro damage dealers thanks to the properties of Lunar Charged, but don't expect him to have the longevity of other characters, especially very good support characters. Flynn's is recommended for players that want to play Lunar Charged or who have Ineffa. Flynn's is a solid damage dealer, but his teams are limited, and he's much more likely to be replaced or benched sooner than other characters. Recommended teams and teammates for Flynn's include Lunar Charge teams with characters like Columbina, Ineffa, Ino, and Sucrose. Next is Ineffa, the Lunar Charged maid from beyond the sky! Ineffa is a spear-wielding, off-field electro damage dealer that works in a variety of teams, but specializes in teams focusing on the Lunar Charged reaction. If you're unfamiliar with Lunar Charged, it's a special reaction that replaces Electro Charged. It summons a thundercloud that attacks enemies when you hit them with both Hydro and Electro. It can crit, it procs once every 2 seconds, and comparatively, Electro Charge ticks more than twice as fast as Lunar Charged, and the Lunar Charge reaction is also not buffed by any damage percent bonuses. It actually has several significant factors that limit its overall damage, so basically the reaction itself is not very good, and Electro Charge has a much higher ceiling for damage. So if Lunar Charged is bad, that means Ineffa is bad, right? Not at all, and let's go over her kit to discover why. Ineffa's normal attacks are not very important, but her elemental skill is. It summons Brigida, the little robot that shields your character and floats over enemies, dealing AoE electro damage every 2 seconds. The shield scales off of Ineffa's attack, and it's far from the strongest shield, but it is tanky enough for almost all content. You can also maintain the shield and Brigida with 100% uptime easily, so that's really nice. Ineffa's elemental burst hits pretty hard and also resummons Brigida to keep blasting enemies. But the main reason you use her elemental burst is not for damage, it's to activate her passive ability, which increases her elemental mastery, as well as your active character's elemental mastery, by 6% of Ineffa's overall attack. Honestly, Ineffa's kit is really not too impressive until we get to her first Ascension passive. And the TLDR on this passive is that as long as there is a thundercloud created from the Lunar Charged reaction, Ineffa's little robot friend will deal an additional AoE attack, and this AoE gets tons of extra reaction multipliers to make it deal almost 10 times more damage. And despite the fact that Ineffa is very focused on the lunar charged reaction, she does pretty well in a variety of teams. She just needs Hydro application to make sure that she can activate her passive, but she isn't locked into only multiple Hydro and Electro characters like a lot of other niche characters. So, how good is Ineffa? Is she truly electrifying, or has she short-circuited? It's time to give her a rating. Ineffa's personal damage is good, with some variability. Ineffa can do good damage off-field provided you have enough Hydro to maintain the Thundercloud for her passive to work, but without enough Hydro, her damage is really poor and she's just not worth using in that situation. But her damage can be amplified well beyond its base through many different factors, including artifact sets and having characters like Columbina on the team. And in these situations, Ineffa's damage is much more potent. Ineffa's support capability is great. Being both a shield character and an off-field damage dealer is very rare in Genshin Impact, and that makes Ineffa very useful in so many different teams. The fact that she relies on Hydro is not that big of a downside, as many of the best teams use Hydro characters, and there are several Hydro characters that we also get for free. Despite the fact that Ineffa was designed for a niche reaction like Lunar Charged, she is not pigeonholed into only working in a niche team, which is why her team flexibility is quite good. Her only real requirements are having a Hydro character that applies enough Hydro to keep the Thundercloud active, to trigger her Lunar Charge passive ability, but that is not too difficult of a requirement to achieve. So as long as you have a team that applies a decent amount of Hydro, and the other members of the team don't completely overtake the Hydro element for their reactions, Ineffa is a super flexible character. Ineffa is also great for free-to-play players or newer players. She's one of the best characters to get if you are a free-to-play player just because she offers so much, and her combination of providing a shield and off-field damage is extremely helpful and makes playing the game very, very comfy, which is exactly why she's really good for new players. The amount of damage she provides along with her defensive capabilities make her a character that can carry you throughout the game while also being very valuable for a long time to come. And while she does need a Hydro character to reliably deal good damage, everyone has access to Ino for free, which will buff Ineffa even further thanks to the effects of Ascendant Gleam and the associated artifacts. Ineffa is overall a great value for your Primo Gems. She'll make Lunar Charge teams with characters like Flins or Columbina much better, but her usefulness goes so far beyond this niche reaction. Her off-field damage, shield, versatility, free-to-play friendliness, and long-term usefulness make her one of the best characters to have on your account. The best teams and teammates for Ineffa include Lunar Charge teams with Flins, Ino, Columbina, Sucrose, Yehoda, etc., semi-Lunar Charge teams with Columbina or high Hydro application characters like Nuvolette, Xingqiu, and Yulan, overloaded Vaporized Lunar Charge teams with Arlecchino and a high Hydro application off-field character like Xingqiu, Animo Absorption teams with Chaska, semi-Hyper Bloom teams with Lauma, and pretty much any Lunar Charge DPS or support. Now that we have a better understanding of these characters, who should you wish for? Well, it comes down to two things. Number one, if you're a new player, a returning player, or a free-to-play player, or someone who just doesn't want to try and wish for multiple limited 5-stars to make one particular team work, then wish for Ineffa. The Electro Shielding Cleaning Bot is one of the best characters you can have on your account right now. She provides a strong shield, good damage from off-field, some small buffs, and she also works in a ton of different teams. Ineffa is the type of character I would recommend newer and returning players try to get because she will just carry you through all the way until the end game, and she will still be very good for a long time to come. She's also a character that is not reliant on specific other characters to be strong, which is unfortunately the plight of the newest and strongest characters to come out in Genshin Impact. Instead, Ineffa only wants a decent amount of Hydro application, which everyone has access to thanks to Ino because we get Ino for free. And the second option is for the player who wants to have an easier time fighting the Snezhnayan shield enemies and mechanics that will definitely be coming out. This is for the type of player who is more focused on the upcoming endgame content, and for them, Odette is the better choice. Her support capabilities, along with off-field damage, make her the clear choice for anyone who is interested in the Stellar Swirl and Stellar Conduct mechanics. She's also a great choice for players who want to revitalize some of their old favorites, like Wriothesley or Cyno. And if you're someone who is trying to save for the Tsaritsa, if you wished for Odette in 7.0, you should be able to save enough Primogems for the Tsaritsa by the time she comes out, but you wouldn't be able to wish much in between, at least as a free-to-play player. As for Flins and Arlecchino, both are pretty good and they're pretty strong damage dealers, but they're characters that I would really only recommend wishing for if you liked them. Flins is a strong damage dealer, but he is much more restrictive in terms of team building. And Arlecchino has a lot of good team options, but her raw damage output is a bit behind Flins's. And considering these factors, what should you do if you're someone who wants both Ineffa and Odette? It really comes down to what you value most and who you have on your account. If you really need a good shield character and want a good character for just versatility's sake, as well as maybe if you have some hydro characters like Nuvolette Farina or especially Columbina, then Ineffa is the best choice. But if you're worried about more new annoying mechanics or endgame enemies, or if you really like playing Wriothesley, Mizuki, Cyno, or finally want the Traveler to feel like an actual damage dealer, then Odette would be the better choice. And even though Lunar Reaction teams have been the strongest for such a long time, you shouldn't have to worry about Lunar Charge Shill after 7.0, because Stellar Swirl and Stellar Conduct Shill will be very rampant all throughout Snezhnaya. So no matter if you go for Ineffa or Odette, both are very good options that you can't really go wrong with. But if you're still wondering who to wish for, you can always ask in the comments or on my Twitch or YouTube live streams. There's obviously a lot to consider when wishing for a 5-star character, including whether you should even wish at all. And even though this video has given you an understanding of the value of these characters for your account, you may still have more questions on who is best for you. So if you want to know what's best for your situation, just leave a comment below, or better yet, come by my live streams on Twitch or YouTube. There you can ask me about who would be best for you to wish for, or if it's better for you to save for future characters. I stream at the times on screen, and you can find the links to my live streams as well as other helpful videos in this video's description. That'll be it for this one, everyone. Have a blessed day, stay jawsome, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.